What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22. Last time out we're at the Chinese Grand Prix, and we unsurprisingly had another DNF on lap 2, and what happened after that remains a mystery forever, but somehow Pierre Gasly ended up winning that race with Stroll second and Tsunoda third. So yes, Tsunoda and just Tsunoda, I guess, eventually ends up getting his first podium before I do. I've yet to have one. My career best finish is 4th, which was in Jeddah. And yeah, this time out we're going to be at the Miami Grand Prix, the first of 2 races this season, which will be taking place in America. Of course, in real life in the 2023 season there will be 3 because they are adding the Las Vegas Grand Prix. So you see here I'm having a look at some of the upgrades I could potentially do. That 100 resource point generation thing looks very tasty, but honestly, at the moment, I don't think that we're really limited too much by our resource point generation, and much more limited by the number of items that we can create at a time, and also how quickly we can create them. So I'd be more interested in focusing on things like fabrication and build time over resource point generation at the moment. You saw there it was an MGUH failure that hit us. I don't know if that was related to the contact we had with Norris, but in any case, we've had to take a replacement one of those as well. We're just going through a few events at the moment. These are all just like, would you rather prioritize morale or your driver or cash or resource points or whatever. It's all fairly I don't know. It can be sometimes useful and sometimes not so useful. We don't have any upgrades to do at the moment, but we do have a facility upgrade that I'm potentially looking at getting on. Or yeah, we've already had a look at some of the chassis facilities that we could upgrade, and I think we're going to do one before the race weekend gets underway, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm just waiting for the extra cash to come in, I think. Yeah, here we go. And then we're going to go for chassis and build time, which is 4.5 million. But I think that will upgrade our entire chassis facility to Spec 2, so it will be quite useful because it unlocks a whole new range of chassis upgrades that we could put on the car, including a tyre wear upgrade, which we could get on the car as early as Spain, which is the next race, actually. So yeah, that could be really good. And then we got that. We got a few more upgrades which require Spec 2, which could be really useful for pulling our car towards the front of the field. We skipped through the Pirelli Hot Lap event as always, and now it's just about time to get into the actual race weekend. Miami Grand Prix. Things didn't go so well around here, but I think I ended up picking up like 15th or 16th after a late race pile-up, which involved Kevin Magnussen and a few other cars. I don't think many people DNF'd, but there were a lot of people pitting sort of on the final few laps, which enabled me to come through and take some positions off people at the death of the race. We're getting battered quite significantly by ALONSO in our rivalry, but the good news is that we continue to close up with the pack. There's probably, I'd say, only sort of maybe 80 development points between ourselves and Red Bull, and this might explain a little bit why we've been kind of as pacey as we have, despite the fact that we are the worst car on the grid. It's that the whole field is very compressed together. You know, normally when you look at something like that, people are going to be spread out across sort of maybe 150 development points. So yeah, really anyone from I think it's Alpine downwards, I think is a team that at this point we can compete with, even if our car is statistically worse.
ALONSO. And that's it. Practice is officially over. Until next time, goodbye.
So we had a drying practice session here towards the end, I think, which I didn't really take part in towards the end. I did all my running at the very beginning, and so in the wet I ended up coming 21st, but I wasn't too concerned. I knew I probably had more pace than that if I'd have gone on to some inters or even done a later wet run or whatever. But you know, we get our upgrades. We're knocking on the door of having a free crankshaft upgrade, so I might potentially look at getting that on the car in time for the coming races. Because you know, engine power is not something that we're particularly interested in at the moment. I think generally we've got most of the upgrades on that already, but every little helps as far as upgrades are concerned. So you see I am actually going to go across and grab this one. Only 110 resource points, and it'll be on the car between Spain and Monaco, which as we all know, engine power upgrade is going to be really useful for Monaco. No, obviously I'm just kidding. But anyway, it will help in future races. Canada after that has a lot of big long straights, and Azerbaijan too, so it will be useful for the ensuing races after Monaco. In any case, it's now time for qualifying. Qualifying, I believe, is projected to start out wet, but it will get drier as the session progresses. So we just need to be on track at the right time. And we go out for our initial run here, and it was, pouring it down with rain at this point. It was full wet conditions. They set another 142. We go faster than some of our rivals, but we're a bit slower than some others. So I'm pretty confident no matter what happens, we're going to have to go again. And indeed, the track was drying out to the point that it was time for inters. And you see I improved by sort of 4.7 seconds, and it was good enough in the end for, in Q1, 3rd position. But take that with a grain of salt, because obviously the track was drying out towards the end and we were the last person to cross the line. So it's natural that we would be a little bit faster. You see that Max Verstappen there is down in 14th, uncharacteristically low for him. But by far the biggest shock is that Charles Leclerc is out in Q1 at the Miami Grand Prix, a race which he was contending for the win in real life in 2022. He fails to make it out of Q1. He will be starting 17th, or maybe a tiny bit higher if he is awarded some positions due to some grid penalties. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. It's still into conditions as we come onto the first flying lap of Q2, and we set a 136, which is good enough for 3rd at this moment in time. Not sure how many cars have gone again. We'll find out when we compare it to the following. And we were in bum last at this point because everyone else had already crossed the line on what is now a dry track. We crossed the line, and it's good enough to get us into 2nd position. Not bad, but again, grain of salt. We were the last car to cross the line on a drying track. So again, I'm not going to read too much into this at the moment. You never know. Once these cars truly unveil their true pace in the final dry qualifying session, that's when I'll believe that we actually have room for this kind of thing. In any case, it's quite a surprise to see Carlos Sainz also eliminated, I think in like 15th or 16th in this scenario. So Ferrari having a really bad weekend, a tragic strategy weekend for them. Here we are again in Q3 now and crossing the line. It's another 128.4. It's a pretty good lap. We were on a fresh set of tyres. Good enough for P6 at the moment, actually. Gasly somehow made it through, so I don't know if he sort of did a right place, right time thing as well. Either way, we're in a very good position right now, but if we can make up some even more time on where we were before, that could be critical for us, starting well. I usually typically do pretty well in Miami. It's one of my stronger circuits since they added it to the game, I'd say. But we still need to try and wring every 10th, every 100th that we can out of the car, because that could be the difference between me getting, P6, P5. Maybe we could even start further up. Who knows? My best start was in China. We had a P4 start, and we've been really competitive in these last few sessions. We would have been more competitive in Australia if we hadn't had the issues in qualifying. I won't keep harping on about those. But yeah, just generally, I think that we're in a really good position as a car right now, and I think if Enzo can find a bit more pace, we could be consistently challenging the top 10 in just about every race if we improve the car a tiny bit and improve his stats a tiny bit. So maybe I need to go into the simulator and upgrade that to a certain extent. Or I don't know what it's called. I think it's called personnel. Not sure. Either way, we come through our final lap in qualifying 3. And we make a bit of a mistake there, but we managed to gain the time back. We brake earlier to get it back on the exit, and we end up improving by about 7/10 as we cross the line. And in the end, that is good enough to put us P2. Not quite pole, but it is our best qualifying performance so far as a team, beating out our performance in China.
It's time to remind ourselves once again of our top 3: Norris, Robinson, and Sergio Perez. With qualifying wrapped up now, we have our grid lineup for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race.
And all I can ask myself at this point is, was there another 10th in that lap that I could have found to get me on pole? But my first pole will have to wait. But what I was saying earlier with regards to Tsunoda getting his first podium before I did, I now have to ask the question, if I can get P2 in qualifying, could I potentially get a podium in this race? It will take a lot, because just because you can do one good lap in qualifying doesn't mean your car is set up well to compete in the race. And I mean, you've seen me in some of these races. I don't typically do well when there's lots of cars around me, and I'm going to be hounded by cars behind all race, I am sure of it. I'm going to have to put on a stalwart defense, especially on that back straight. You saw what happened last year. I think it will probably be a similar scenario this year, where I'll just be passed by cars over and over. But, you know, never say never. We could be in with a real shot here, perhaps with some drama. We might be able to escape some of these cars.
Welcome to the Magic City. We're here at the Miami International Autodrome, the home of the Hard Rock Stadium, a multi-purpose sports and entertainment hub which has hosted Super Bowls, Baseball World Series, numerous rock concerts, and now, for the first time, Formula One. A lap of the Miami Grand Prix features 3.36 miles of track around the Hard Rock Stadium, and 19 corners make up the Miami International Autodrome, which will challenge the drivers in a tight wheel-to-wheel race. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and Robinson completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Russell, Fernando Alonso, and Verstappen, Ricciardo, Hamilton, Gasly, and Esteban Ocon, Albon, Schwartzman, Yuki Tsunoda, and Stroll, Sainz, Leclerc, Guan Yu Zhou, and Sebastian Vettel. Magnussen, they've taken a grid penalty, Mick Schumacher, Fittipaldi, and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn one, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
So we got Norris for company again, as we did in the Chinese Grand Prix, and we all know what happened in that one. I'm not saying that the damage that he did to me necessarily caused my DNF, but it certainly didn't look good for him because my car broke down basically immediately after he hit me. So I'm just going to try and give him a wide berth at the start, even if that means, you know, I had a chance to take the lead and I kind of back out of the move. I just want to get through in one piece. Passing up on a podium is too much. You know, we already threw away what could have been an easy P4, P5 by being too aggressive off the start in China. I'm not going to chalk that all up to my own fault because I do think that that Norris could have been blamed if that was the problem. Otherwise, it could have just been dumb luck. But yeah, I want to keep the car clean to minimize the chance of having a DNF in this race as well, because we have a really good shot to score a really strong amount of points, maybe overtake AlphaTauri. Here we go as the lights come on and the lights go out, and it's a really good getaway from us. It's a poor getaway from Lando Norris, and we basically instantly sail into the lead of this race, leading a race for the first time properly as far as I can tell, as we move to the wide replay cam. And you can see the action shots of me sailing through the first few corners here. That was a really good getaway. I'm steaming away from Lando Norris. This is an absolutely brilliant start from me. And at this point, I was elated. You know, I think I had briefly maybe led races before on strategy and things like that. But this is the first time I think I've led a race off of pure pace. Unfortunately, as you can see, it doesn't last very long. And Lando Norris has overtaken me by the very end of the first lap. But that's okay, as long as we can stay with him, we could potentially try and attack him back as we come through the following laps in the race. He sets the fastest lap, unsurprisingly. 6 tenths ahead of me already. He has some real pace in the car. I think at this point McLaren are actually the second best car on the grid, and only very, very slightly behind Red Bull. So, you know, Norris could potentially emerge as a championship contender if things keep going McLaren's way. I don't think Ricciardo has the beans for it anymore, unfortunately, but Lando Norris, I think, is still within a real shot if he can start racking up some race wins. Obviously, he had that podium in Australia, I believe it was. Now we move on to lap 3, and you see I've stayed with him enough to have the DRS, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to size up a move on him here. I'm pretty much already out of battery above all else. And I go a bit deep there, I brake a little bit late, and that kind of invites George Russell to the party. So I'm going to have a task on my hands holding him off as Lando Norris pulls further and further away. We still do have the DRS, but Russell, you see, has the superior pace. He's going to size up a move as we go into turn 1, and I just managed to keep him behind for now, but who knows what could happen going forward. Here we are now at the end of lap 4, and moving into lap 5, and Norris is nowhere to be seen, but Russell is definitely to be seen. He sizes up a move a bit earlier than he did on the previous lap, and just about manages to wrangle his way through there. I think I cut the corner there again, so we need to be careful for the rest of the race, or we're going to get smacked with a penalty. Now here we are at the end of lap 5, and you can see I am going to have the DRS to Russell, but Perez is also going to have the DRS to me, and statistically the Mercedes, the Red Bulls, the Ferraris, they've had superior pace to me. I go for a bit of a dive there on Russell, but as you can see it was a bit deep, and now Russell has managed to get back ahead of me once again. Sergio Perez has joined the battle. He's gone around the outside with the DRS. We've got no DRS, and that was all he needed to get ahead of us. Just being really aggressive at the moment, trying to defend my position, and so far it's not worked out for me whatsoever. I've been kicked off the podium. I'm down into P4 now at this point, I believe, and here comes Fernando Alonso to make my day even worse. This rivalry between us reaching a boiling point. I feel like we're, you know, not necessarily racing, but I feel like there's always some sort of dynamic between me and him. Lewis Hamilton seemed to go for a move on Alonso there as well. So this is going to be 3 wide as we go across the start-finish line and into the first corner. None of us yielding. Ricciardo wants a piece of the action as well. I'm going up the inside, and can I make it stick? I just about can. I stay ahead of Alonso, but Hamilton has got ahead of Alonso, but Hamilton is still pretty close to me. So let's see. He might try and go for something risky here into one of these corners, and indeed he does. Through the sweeping left-right sequence, he does just about get ahead of me. That was a really ballsy move from Lewis Hamilton, and it's one of the reasons why he's a 7-time world champion, no doubt. Now here we are, lap 10, a little bit later in the race. We've managed to keep Hamilton in our sights within DRS range. Thankfully, Alonso hasn't been challenging us too hard and holding us up and wasting our time. Are we going to go for a move into this final corner? I do think about it, but I'm just not quite close enough to commit to the dive. So he is going to stay P4 and we're going to stay P5 for now. P5 is still going to be a great result if we can manage it. That's 10 points. I just don't want us to lose out to AlphaTauri in the championship off the back of one sort of, I don't want to call it fluky, because obviously I don't know, but one win under suspicious circumstances. Here we are now at the end of lap 11, and you can see we're a lot closer to Hamilton than we were on the previous lap. So I might be more inclined to size up a move on him at this point. Go to the inside, he defends to the inside, and that opens up the outside nicely for me. Are we going to try a move around the outside of him? I don't know who's going to have the DRS here, but at the moment I have the position. I will definitely have to defend from him, no doubt. You can see how close he is already as Sergio Perez comes into the pits. We are only a lap or 2 away from pitting ourselves, I believe. So yeah, it's about that time in the race. We're doing a medium-hard strategy. We managed to keep Hamilton behind just about, but I'm sure he is not out of the fight entirely so far, and I'm sure he will probably come back at us on a later lap. Maybe this lap, maybe a following lap, who knows. There's 3 DRS zones around Miami, and so far we've barely seen this one because this one seems to be notoriously difficult to overtake in. No one's really even given it a shot this time, but you can see how close Hamilton is to the back of me, less than 2 tenths already, and there's still a bit of a run down to the corner. He's still gaining, he's still gaining. I moved to the outside because I figured that's the spot I can defend easier, but he covers me off. He actually pushes me off the circuit a little bit there, but I don't get a warning for it, and that's all good. So, yeah, Hamilton regains the position. Currently P3, but Sergio Perez has already pitted, so obviously I think this is technically net P5, or P4 and P5. Towards the end of the lap, we go around the outside of Hamilton once again. Somehow we have the superior grip here. He gets a bit more traction than we do on the exit of the corner, but we're going to have the DRS. Is it going to be enough to overtake him? He's still pulling away even with no DRS, but we're able to dive down the inside and move back into net P4 on the road P3 at the moment. And this is shaping up to be a really, really epic battle with Hamilton for the final podium position. So we move through the rest of this lap. I think we're boxing at the end of this lap. You see George Russell and Lando Norris are much further up the road, so I think that's a nailed on P1, P2 for them. And right now it looks like it's going to be another Brit to complete the podium, but who's it going to be? Is it going to be myself? Is it going to be Hamilton? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Hamilton, I think, is going to challenge us again as we come through here. There's a yellow flag which has come out. This might just about save my bacon because it means Hamilton won't be allowed to overtake me without being penalised. I was definitely ahead, but then the yellow flag position shifts, and it is George Russell. You can see there he is out of the race. I don't know what has happened with him, but yeah, that is going to be disappointing for him. I'm assuming some kind of engine issue or something to that description. Either way, the podium is still now an all-British podium, but it looks like it was Russell that will no longer be part of the equation. But, you know, now no one is around to challenge Norris. He's already 10 seconds up the road and it's only been 13 laps. We're coming into the pits for the hard compounded tyres. I think Hamilton is actually following us in, as is Alonso. So we have a really good shot here of sort of staying ahead of these guys. As long as we can find the grip and the temperature in the tyres nice and early on this stint, because the hard compound tyres can be a pain in the sort of start of the stint. We just need to try and warm them up as quickly as we can. Enzo is currently ahead of us, but he still has to pit. I think there's a similar scenario for Tsunoda behind us. He probably still has to pit. It's amazing to me that AlphaTauri can go from being on the podium in one race to racing at the back in the following. But Tsunoda, due to having the superior tyre temperature and superior tyre compound, has just managed to overtake me for now. I think I'll be able to come back at him once I got a bit more temperature in the tyres, but that's still really annoying because it's going to cost me time and allow Hamilton to close up to me. If we can overtake him, then maybe we can put a car between myself and Hamilton, but Tsunoda will have to pit at some point, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Here we are, lap 15. We're going to dive up the inside at the sort of final corner. I know technically I think this bit here counts as a corner as well, and then this one counts as yet another one, so yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Tsunoda has stayed out for now, hasn't pitted yet, so I think he's actually sounded like he made a bit of contact with us there, as Verstappen comes out in the exact position that Hamilton is, basically, so they're squabbling, and all the while this is allowing me to get away. I need to drop Tsunoda though. I really don't want him to overtake me again, because if he does, that's going to cost me even more time. Verstappen is holding up Hamilton a treat at the moment. It's a 2-second gap, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Now we're on lap 21. Here's Lando Norris at lead of the race, and he's dropped it at the end of the final straight. Fortunately, he managed to keep it out of the wall, and it looked like that probably only cost him about 5 seconds or so. And you can see this from my perspective now. The yellow flag came out briefly, and then the green flag came out. He was 13 seconds ahead of me before he made that mistake, and as we move here, he is more like 7 seconds ahead of me. I don't think we have the pace to catch him, but yeah, that was just a little mistake that he made. And then nothing really happened for the rest of the race after that. Hamilton didn't close up to me anywhere near as quickly as I thought he was going to. I didn't really have to do any defending whatsoever, so yeah, I'm not really sure. I think him and Verstappen might have had some contact somewhere or something, because Verstappen's nowhere to be seen now. Perez was on a weird stint where he decided, or weird strategy I should say, where he decided to do medium, soft, I think. so or maybe medium, soft, medium, I'm not sure. So he's not currently really in the race either, and this has allowed me to come into P2 once again, where I started the race. We haven't caught Norris at all. Hamilton is just approaching being within DRS range, so as long as we can keep him sort of at arm's length as we come into this final of the DRS zones a little bit later in the lap, after the Mickey Mouse section, as some people refer to it, I think we will probably be okay. But yeah, he's definitely getting a lot closer. I think we should be fine to be on the podium no matter what happens, as long as we don't make a mistake. But I don't know whether it's going to be P2 or P3. It's going to all come down to this final DRS zone. So we just need to burn as much battery as we can, and think about what the smartest port of call as far as if we need to defend here is going to be. It looks like he's not quite going to be close enough to size up a move on us. He looks like he's thinking about it there, but we just about managed to hold him off for now. I don't burn the battery to the line. That was a bit stupid of me, really, but Norris wins the race, and we come home, and it's a P2 podium finish.
That's a podium. Excellent drive. The team has worked especially hard this weekend, and this is a fantastic reward.
Absolutely brilliant result, and completely deserved. We qualified P2 in Q3 on pure pace, and now we've come P2 in the race on pure pace as well. So can't be too disappointed with that.
But what set them apart from the rest?
I'd say it was down once again to good, consistent driving, nailing the corners, working to the track conditions, and perfecting the team's strategies. They got all of these things right today, and the results speak for themselves.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure. And no doubt, they'll be celebrating tonight.
They might be celebrating tonight, but they'll only be celebrating about as hard as I'll be celebrating the fact that we just got a podium in what is supposedly the worst car on the grid. Like I said, I think it's tenuous to call it that, because I really just think that all the cars have their own strengths that they play to. I think one of our strengths is straight line speed, and I think our strength being straight line speed is undercut by the fact that because I'm playing on a slightly reduced AI difficulty to where I usually would be, I'm cornering a bit better than the AI, and that is making all the difference. It's an all-British podium. Doesn't that look good?
For our championship leader, and their advantage at the top has been reduced. Some amazing talent out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
It's got to be Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he pulled off some impressive feats out on the track today, even by his standards.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. And pulling further ahead in the standings, it's Red Bull. There was also a strong showing from the Mercedes team today, as they make their way up the standings. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
We have once again jumped AlphaTauri in the constructors, which is nice to see, by 4 points as a result of me grabbing 18 points in this race. That was really nice to see. No Enzo in the points this time, but that's to be expected in what can only be considered a more normal race. I don't know if me and Norris actually made contact at the start. I didn't hear anything, but maybe I should go back and have a look at that. Yeah, just all round really solid weekend from start to finish. There was nothing really that I was ever unhappy with. We're moving into some of the more normal races now, I would say. Spain is a very neutral race for me. It usually always goes okay. I'll probably finish about where I'm expected to finish there. After that, we've got Monaco, which is not going to go well. That'll probably be my first, if I finish that race, it'll be my first finish outside of the points. I don't imagine anything else is going to happen there. Then we've got Baku, which we all know how bad Baku was last year. I can only hope it's a bit nicer this year. And then I think it's Canada after that, which is, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that one goes. I don't think it went particularly well for me last year, but obviously that was with the straight line speed thing. Usually it's not too bad. I just struggle immensely at the final chicane. We had a lot of really good battles this race, with Hamilton, with Alonso, with Russell, with Perez, a little bit with Norris, although it was kind of just I got ahead of him and then he was way faster than me. He definitely deserved the win. He was the fastest car on track for the whole of qualifying and for the whole of the race, basically. So I don't think you can really argue with him getting P1. I think that might be his first win. I'm not sure if he got one last season, but if not, then yeah, that was his first win of the entire of his career. And I don't doubt it probably won't be his last this season. So we can see what happens here in the background. Oh, okay. So that was what happened with Verstappen and Hamilton. Is that Hamilton just absolutely, well, basically got smacked into by Verstappen leaving the pits. Not the first time they've made contact upon leaving the pits, but yeah, that was a big hit. So no wonder something was probably up with Verstappen after that. But anyway, that's pretty much all we have time for regarding this Grand Prix. You can see here we did outperform Alonso in the rivalry, so that's nice to see, even if it's only by a point. We're now 8 points behind him. It's his home race coming up next, so I'm sure he'll do extra well there. We gain some acclaim for that podium. Enzo gets some acclaim for not finishing last, probably. Let's see, did we do much damage to the car? I don't actually think we did do that much. We hit all of our sponsor objectives, which was good. I think the cash coming in for this weekend is going to be quite nice. We did do a little bit. Enzo didn't do any, so that's nice. We got 65k extra from that. And that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you like and subscribe. Next up, we got the Spanish Grand Prix, which I hope will be interesting. And I'll see you in the next one.